Hello, this is Godel. I wanted to just really quickly go over a couple of different build concepts that I'm going to be or am currently using in my Let's Play. So the first one I wanted to go over was um, P2P interface tunnels, and I actually have this already set up here. Let me go ahead and clear this setup up here, and we'll just rebuild it from scratch. All right, so you might be familiar if you are a um, applied energistics kind of intermediate or veteran user, you're probably familiar with P2P tunnels. So you can put one thing on one side and then you can kind of make it appear somewhere else in your system. With the combination of mods that's in Feed the Beast Interactions Remastered, as well as other mods, basically you need to have AE2 fluid crafting and what else? Obviously AE2 itself, and then this mod right here, Neve's AE2 Extended Life Add-ons. That's the one that has the interface tunnel. You can actually do something pretty interesting. So there's a P2P type called an interface tunnel. So you can see here at the top of the screen, P2P tunnel, ME interface. And what this allows you to do is that it allows you to have an interface like this. I'm just going to use a square interface because it's easier to look at. You could also use a flat panel interface. But now this interface is pointed at basically a proxy interface. And you can use this to have your interface able to interact with multiple outputs. So we can say shift right click with our memory card here. That's going to pick up this P2P tunnel, and then we can paste it over here. So now there is one input on this interface, and it is going to these three machines. And one thing you'd want to set while using this is you'd want to set blocking mode enabled so that it doesn't push a bunch of stuff into the same output. It's going to always push an entire recipe into the same container. So if there is not room for the entire recipe, it will not push it. And if you are using GregTech machines, you're probably also going to want to use a program circuit card because it will also push the program circuit configuration into your machine. So on this side, for example, we could have assemblers. What are they called? Assembling machine. Here we go. So you could just have like some HV assembly machines. Now we have one interface here that's able to parallelize all of the recipes it has in here to multiple assemblers. So if you request, this crafts in batches of 6, so if you request 18 of these, it's going to put recipe for 6 of them in here, 6 of them in there, and then 6 of them in there. And then those 3 will be crafting in parallel. And then one other thing you can do with this is that we have this frequency that it's on, 7575. You can also make multiple inputs with this. So if you put the memory card in your offhand, you can now paste onto inputs. So these two interfaces are now set as the input side of 7575. So you can see here we have 7575 input side, 3 outputs, and then the 7575 output side, 3 inputs. So we could then have, get this out of my offhand there, we could then have more interfaces here. And let me rotate the interface into the block here. Let's play the rotate the interface game. There we go. So now these 3 interfaces are able to distribute all of their recipes across those 3 assembly machines. And this is really big for any machine that has just a stupid amount of recipes. Like, how about assembly machines? Look at this. 2,000 pages of them. And you have to use a lot of these, and a lot of them use program circuits. So you're just going to have a bajillion assembling machines otherwise, with like different program circuits in them, and maybe you'll have one dedicated to rubber and one dedicated to polyethylene and stuff. Or you can have the interface kind of pushing to multiple assembly machines and changing that program circuit on the fly. So really powerful build concept here. And then the other build concept I wanted to go is actually a parallelized multiblock. So using this concept is actually not going to be possible with the next build. and it also is going to work with program circuits. But currently, there's a little bit of a what's it called? Like just shortcoming of the program circuit card, and that it's really hard to use with multi-blocks. Because in order for it to work with multi-blocks, you have to have your interface that has the program circuit card directly against your bus that has the ghost circuit slot in it. So this thing over here. And you also have to have the interface against a fluid tank to be able to push the items into the fluid tank. And since in these versions of Minecraft, GregTech, there's no way to take items out of the input buses, you have to basically push them into the fluid tank and the input bus at the same time. So in order to do this, we have an interface here. It is non-directional, so it doesn't have an arrow pointing anywhere. It is blocking mode, but blocking mode only works on the items for some reason. When you have a recipe that uses items and fluid, it only blocks items that go into the item container. It doesn't block this tank. So I could put stuff in this tank and it wouldn't care. It would just keep going. Here on the left, I have a very simple integrated dynamics network. I just have a fluid reader here that has a variable tank not empty, and it just reads here into the redstone output tank not empty. And what that does is that in combination with lock crafting with redstone signal, if there is a fluid in the fluid tank, this is going to lock our crafter. So this is like DIY blocking for the fluid because the interface doesn't know how to actually block the fluid on itself. So then, how do these recipes work? There's one more shortcoming with these recipes in that if you have a recipe like this that has a program circuit in it, but it has no other items and it only has fluids, when you push this recipe into this interface, it's actually not going to update the program circuit because it's not pushing any items in there. So I have a workaround for that. Let's see. Let's get one of my circuits out here. I'll get a few of my circuits here. So there's 5 different fluids recipes I have in there that you're gonna see me craft here momentarily. But let me show you what the recipe is. So the workaround is we have our fluid, we have our circuit, and then you need to find an item that is for the multi-block that you use that does not conflict with any other recipe. So in this case, I found slime ball plus where's the chemical reactor page? Here it is. Slime ball plus blaze powder makes a magma cream. And that is the only use for slime ball in a chemical reactor. And then for blaze powder, that is also the only use for blaze powder in a chemical reactor. So we can kind of throw this item in as a dummy to trigger this to put something into the item bus, and it's going to use that to update the circuit. But then all the fluids are going to be there, and it's going to be able to craft the fluids. And then you can also scale your fluids to whatever size you want. Like if you wanted to craft 3 million buckets at a time, you would do that, provided that your input hatch is large enough. You would just want to make sure that you have your slime ball and your blaze powder still set to 1, so that it doesn't make a whole bunch of magma creams for no reason. You only need to make 1. So anyways, middle mouse click to adjust the values here if you didn't know. Let's put this back to the size I had it. This is, I think this is a 16x recipe because normally this is crafted in 500s. No, normally this is crafted in 250s. So this is like a 4 times 8. That's a 36 times, right? 4 times 8? No, 32 times recipe. Anyways, and then so this recipe, you see it has program circuit 2. This is lightly hydrocracked light fuel. It's a program circuit of 1. Again, you see we have a dummy slime ball and blaze powder in there. And then we also have nitric acid, which uses oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen. No other items, but we do have, oh, why does this have 16 program circuits in it? Just update that to 1. We do also have the slime ball and blaze powder in there. And with all of these in here, I have a recipe down here. It's just requesting a bunch of those fluids, I'm going to request this to show you that the build works. So it's going to be creating lightly hydrocracked heavy fuel, nitric acid, severely hydrocracked heavy fuel, as well as the same for the light fuel. And that's just because there's a whole bunch of conflicts that are possible with all those recipes. And you're going to see we have this chemical reactor. It's kind of joined on the corner. So this block in the front is an input hatch that's shared between all 4 of these chemical reactors. And then here where this interface is, that is the input bus that's shared between all 4 chemical reactors. So they're all sharing that using the same circuit from the input bus and the same fluids from the input hatch. And on the sides here, I just have an ME output hatch and ME output bus on both sides because there's only so many shared blocks, so we had to have a pair of those on each side to share between the sides. And if we look in our input hatch over here, we can see it. It's like pushing fluids in here, but there's never ever a conflict. Like you always only see one recipe at a time. That's because our custom fluid blocking and the way the interface is pushing those items in there, that pushes the items in there, and then for one tick, it's going to process the magma cream, but that's long enough for the integrated dynamics fluid tank reader to read this tank and then block the interface. So there we go. Crafting is complete. We go look at our input hatch here, and we have all 5 of those fluids. If we look in our storage cell over here, this storage cell is empty. That means there were no miscrafts, there were no overcrafts, nothing. So it was a perfect output, even though we had all of these different recipes with different program circuits and conflicting inputs and outputs, but nothing went wrong. So this is a build you can use. Again, I mentioned you cannot use this build up here with the P2P interface tunnels with something like this, because you need to have the cubic interface in order to be able to push items into the input bus and into the fluid tank at the same time. Now, you could have a build like this if you had a multi-block that does not use program circuits, but because this uses program circuits, the bus needs to be against the interface directly. If you had a multi-block that does not use program circuits though, then this whole workaround you need for the program circuit card isn't applicable. You can just use something like a buffer. There's the AE2 fluid crafting buffers, as well as the GregTech advanced buffers and such. These are tanks that have an inventory and multiple tanks, and you could push your recipes into that. Then you just pipe your recipes from your buffer into your into your multi-block inputs, and that would work just fine. But it's only going to work if you have no program circuits, or if you have a machine or group of machines where you've dedicated a program circuit. For example, electric EBF. Electric blast furnace. Wow, couldn't spell. Electric blast furnace recipes, oftentimes they are either using no program circuit or they're using program circuit 2 plus a fluid. So you could presumably have one set of EBFs that use no program circuit, or they use program circuit 1, which is usually the non-fluid recipe. Say we have this and it cooks without any fluid, and then you can add a fluid to make it more efficient. So you could just have a bunch of EBFs that already have a program circuit 1, and then a bunch that have a program circuit 2, and then you could parallelize those using the this system, but you wouldn't be changing the program circuits. Those are fixed program circuits. And you could have like one interface feeding like 20 EBFs if you wanted to. So just wanted to showcase that. The slight note is that if you could have a way to set this program circuit in here without having to have this interface against it, you could potentially do this build on a build like this, but the problem is that you can't. And I've tried like all sorts of manners of ways. It's not possible unless the interface is directly against the bus. So There was some development under the Neves 82 add-ons mod that I saw was pending, and it looks like it never happened. So I think that repository is no longer being updated, unfortunately. Kind of is the way it is with Minecraft mods. They eventually move on. You know, somebody takes over Thaumcraft, somebody takes over Britannia, etc. But anyways, hopefully this build is helpful, whether you are on Feed the Beast interactions or similar mod packs that have all of the prerequisite mods. And hope you found this helpful. And if you enjoy this tutorial or you're enjoying my other Let's Play series, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and I will see you in my next regular episode of my Let's Play. See ya!